At 82, I thought moving into a nursing home was the right choice. It seemed like the perfect solution: safety, care, and peace of mind. But looking back, it's one of my biggest regrets. If I could go back, there are 6 things I wish someone had told me before I made that decision. I'm here to share those 6 lessons with you today. If you're considering a nursing home for yourself or someone you love, these insights might change everything for you. So, please stay with me until the end, because these 6 lessons aren't just about comfort or care. They're about how life truly changes when you move into a nursing home. Some of what I'll share might surprise you. If you're finding this helpful, hit subscribe and tap the bell so you don't miss future videos. Leave a comment if something resonates, and give it a like to support the channel. Now, let's dive into the 6 lessons I wish I'd known before moving into a nursing home. Lesson 1 is about losing independence. When I first moved into the nursing home, I didn't expect to lose so much control over my own life. At home, I was used to making my own decisions, deciding when to wake up, when to eat, and how to spend my day. I could take a walk whenever I wanted, cook my own meals, or simply sit quietly in my favorite chair with a good book. But inside the nursing home, all of that changed. Everything ran on a schedule that wasn't mine. Meals were served at specific times, even if I wasn't hungry. Lights out happened at a set hour, whether I was ready for bed or not. Want to take a walk outside? You'll probably need permission and might have to wait until someone is available to assist you. I remember waking up during my first week there, reaching for my book, only to realize this wasn't my home anymore. My routines, my comforts, and even my little freedoms were gone. You start to feel like you're no longer in charge of your own life, and getting that independence back, that's almost impossible. You learn to fit into their system because you have to. But in the process, you start to lose yourself. If you're considering a nursing home, ask yourself if you're ready to give up the small freedoms that make life your own, because once they're gone, you'll miss them more than you think. Lesson 2 is about feeling forgotten. One of the hardest things I realized after moving into a nursing home was how easy it is to feel left behind. In the beginning, my family reassured me that they would visit often, and at first, they did. My daughter came by every week, and my grandchildren visited on weekends. It felt like I still had a connection to my old life, but as time went on, the visits became less frequent. My daughter would call instead of coming, and my grandchildren got busy with their own lives. School, work, friends. Holidays were the hardest. Everyone promised to come, but somehow, plans always changed at the last minute. I found myself sitting alone in the common room, watching the door, hoping that today would be the day someone remembered me. But it wasn't that my family stopped loving me. Life just moved on without me. When you're not part of their everyday lives anymore, it's easy for people to assume you're fine, that you don't need as much attention. But the truth is, the longer you're in a nursing home, the easier it is to feel forgotten. I remember sitting in my room, holding my phone, wondering if I should call my son, but I didn't want to be a burden. I didn't want to remind him that I was here, waiting for a visit that might never come. If you're thinking about moving into a nursing home, ask yourself if you're prepared for the loneliness, because no matter how much your family loves you, being out of sight makes it easier to become out of mind. Lesson 3 is about losing your sense of purpose. When I moved into the nursing home, I thought I was just changing where I lived. I didn't realize I was also changing why I lived. At home, I had responsibilities, routines, and hobbies that gave me a reason to get up in the morning. Even the small tasks, like watering the plants, making my own coffee, or tidying up my space, gave me a sense of purpose. But in the nursing home, those daily rituals disappeared. Meals were made for me, cleaning was done by someone else, and the plants, well, they weren't mine to care for anymore. At first, it felt like a relief. No more chores, no more responsibilities, just time to relax. But after a few weeks, I realized something was missing. The days felt long and stretched out, with nothing to do but wait. I saw it in other residents too. People who had once been active, full of energy, now spent their days sitting, staring, waiting for time to pass. There was a man named George, 84 years old, who had been a carpenter his whole life. He was always fixing things at home, always working on some project. But in the nursing home, there were no tools, no projects, nothing for him to build. I watched as his hands, once strong and skilled, sat idle in his lap. "I feel useless," he told me one day, and I knew exactly what he meant. When you no longer have something to care for or work towards, life starts to lose its meaning. The mind slows down, the body follows, and soon you start to feel like just another resident in a place where time moves, but nothing really changes. If you're thinking about moving into a nursing home, ask yourself what gives your life meaning. Because once you move in, finding purpose isn't as simple as keeping busy. It's about holding on to the things that make you feel alive. Lesson 4 is the surprising decline in health. Before I moved into the nursing home, I was doing quite well for my age. I wasn't running marathons, but I could take care of myself, go for walks, and cook my own meals. I had little routines that kept me moving, like grocery shopping, stretching in the morning, or just walking around the house to keep my legs strong. But once I moved in, things changed. At first, it felt like I was just taking it easy. Meals were brought to me. I didn't have to stand in the kitchen or do much of anything. Really, if I needed something, I could just push a button and help was there. But what I didn't realize was that the less I did for myself, the weaker I became. I stopped moving as much, and soon my legs felt stiffer. I was sitting more than I used to, and before I knew it, getting up from a chair started feeling like a chore. The muscles I had worked years to maintain were disappearing faster than I could have imagined. And it wasn't just me. I saw it happen to others too. People who had walked in on their own 2 feet were soon relying on wheelchairs. People who had been independent now needed help with things they never used to struggle with. The more help we were given, the more we seemed to need it. I remember my neighbor, Alice, an 81-year-old woman who had been lively when she first arrived. She used to take daily walks around the facility, proudly insisting she wouldn't slow down just because of her age. But after a few months, she wasn't walking as much. Then she started using a walker, then a wheelchair. One day, she looked at me and said, "I don't know when it happened, but I feel like I've aged 10 years in just a few months." And that's exactly what it felt like. When you stop using your body, you start losing it. And in a place like a nursing home where everything is designed to make life easier, it's easy to forget that moving isn't just about convenience. It's about survival. If I had known how quickly I'd lose my strength, I would have fought harder to keep moving, to stay active, to push myself, even on the days I didn't feel like it. If you're thinking about a nursing home, ask yourself, will you still have the motivation to keep your body strong when everything is set up to make life effortless? Because once you slow down, getting back up is harder than you think. Lesson 5 is the loss of privacy and dignity. Before moving into a nursing home, I had my own space. I could close my bedroom door, sit in silence if I wanted to, and do things on my own terms. But in a nursing home, privacy is a luxury. From the moment I arrived, I felt like I was constantly being watched. Staff would come in and out, performing scheduled room checks. Shared spaces meant you were rarely alone, and even the simplest of tasks like getting dressed or using the bathroom often required someone's assistance. I understand that the staff were just doing their job, but it's not easy to accept help for things you've done independently your entire life. I remember that first week, struggling with the realization that I had to ask for permission to do things I used to do without thinking. Want to take a shower? You might have to wait until someone's available to help. Need to use the restroom? Sometimes pressing the call button means waiting longer than you'd like. Even meal choices were limited. If you didn't like what was on the menu, too bad. Then there was the issue of roommates. Not everyone gets a private room, and sharing a space with someone you didn't choose can be difficult. I was lucky to have a kind roommate, but I've heard stories from others who weren't as fortunate. Some had roommates who were loud, unclean, or suffered from cognitive issues that made sleeping nearly impossible. No matter how much you try to make your room feel like home, it never truly is. Dignity is a hard thing to lose, and I didn't realize how much of mine I'd have to surrender until I was already there. When people knock, but don't always wait for an answer before coming in, when you're spoken to like a patient instead of a person, when your daily routine is dictated by a schedule you didn't create, it changes you. You start to feel less like yourself, more like just another name on a list. If you're considering a nursing home, ask yourself, are you prepared to give up the privacy and control you've had your entire life? Because once it's gone, it's hard to get it back. Lesson 6 is realizing it's harder to leave than you think. When I first moved into the nursing home, I told myself it was temporary. I thought I'd give it a try, see how things went, and if I didn't like it, I could always leave. But what I didn't realize was just how difficult it would be to get out once I was in. At first, it seemed simple. If I didn't like it, I'd just go back home. But home wasn't the same anymore. My house sat empty, and maintaining it from a distance became difficult. My children had already started making changes, selling things they thought I wouldn't need, even considering renting out the place. When I brought up the idea of returning, they hesitated. "Are you sure you can manage on your own?" they'd ask. "Wouldn't it be safer to stay? We just want what's best for you." And then there was the issue of physical decline. After months of living in a place where I didn't have to cook, clean, or even walk very far, I wasn't as strong as I used to be. The independence I once had started slipping away, making the idea of moving back home more difficult than I ever imagined. I wasn't as confident in my ability to live alone, and that fear kept me stuck. I met others who had the same experience. They thought they'd try the nursing home for a little while, only to realize that leaving wasn't as easy as they thought. The longer you stay, the harder it becomes to adjust to life outside. Some people even lose the option entirely. Once their home is sold or their savings drained by the cost of care, there's no going back. That's the part no one tells you. Moving in feels like a decision you can reverse, but for most people, it isn't. The nursing home slowly becomes your whole world, and before you know it, the life you once knew starts to feel like a distant memory. If you're considering a nursing home, ask yourself, are you prepared for the possibility that once you go in, leaving might not be as simple as you think? Because once you settle in, the barriers to leaving, whether financial, physical, or emotional, can be harder to overcome than you expect. Looking back, I don't regret growing older, but I do regret believing that a nursing home was my only option. I walked in expecting comfort, safety, and a better quality of life. What I found instead was a world that slowly took away my independence, my privacy, my purpose, and even my sense of self. Does that mean nursing homes are all bad? Not necessarily. Some people genuinely need the level of care they provide. But before you make that decision, think carefully about what you're giving up, because once you move in, life will never be the same. If I could do it over, I would have fought harder to stay in my own home, explored more ways to get help without giving up my freedom, and made sure I truly needed to be there before making such a permanent move. And if you're facing this decision, I hope you take the time to ask yourself, is this truly what's best for me? Or is it just what seems easiest right now? Because the life you have today, your routines, your independence, your choices, is worth holding on to for as long as you can. Thank you for joining me today. I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below and share one thing you've learned today and how you plan to use it in your life. Your thoughts are important to us, so don't hesitate to share them. Reading your comments gives us great motivation and encouragement. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.